Stop what you're doing. What I'm about to tell you will either make you question everything you believe about intelligence and opportunity, or you'll think this is impossible. A janitor's 16-year-old twin daughters just solved a $300 million problem that 10 MIT PhD engineers couldn't crack in 2 years. The solution took them 3 weeks. The CEO's response? He didn't just give them scholarships. He did something that's never happened in corporate history. But here's the part that'll blow your mind. These girls have never taken an advanced math class. They've never had a tutor. They don't even own a computer at home. Yet they discovered something that the smartest minds in Silicon Valley miss completely. And what happens next will either inspire you to see potential in impossible places, or make you realize you've been underestimating people your entire life. Fair warning. This story will change how you think about talent, education, and who deserves opportunities. By the end, you'll understand why the biggest breakthroughs often come from the most unexpected sources. Meet Carlos Rodriguez. He's worked the night shift at Tech Global Industries for 12 years. Every night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., he cleans the offices of some of the brightest minds in technology. While they're home sleeping, Carlos is emptying their trash cans, mopping their floors, and listening to their leftover conversations. But Carlos has a secret. He's not just a janitor. He's a dreamer. Every morning when he gets home to his small apartment in Queens, he wakes up his twin daughters, Maria and Sofia Rodriguez. They're 16 years old, honor students at their local high school, and they share their father's curiosity about the world. For years, Carlos has been telling his daughters stories about the brilliant people he works around. The engineers who design spacecraft, the programmers who create artificial intelligence, the scientists who solve impossible problems. Mias, he would say, intelligence isn't about where you come from. It's about how you see problems that others can't see. Carlos never finished high school. He came to America when he was 17, worked construction, then became a janitor to support his family. But he always believed his daughters were destined for something greater. What Carlos didn't know was that his daughters had been secretly listening to his stories and developing their own theories about the problems he described. In March 2024, Tech Global Industries faced their biggest crisis in company history. They had spent $300 million developing a revolutionary battery technology that could power electric vehicles for 1,000 miles on a single charge. The technology worked perfectly in the lab, but when they tried to scale it for mass production, everything failed. The batteries would work for a few weeks, then suddenly lose 80% of their capacity. 10 of the world's leading battery experts had been working on a problem for 2 years. They tried everything: different materials, new chemical compounds, advanced manufacturing processes. Nothing worked. The company was hemorrhaging money. The stock price had dropped 40%. The board of directors was demanding answers. CEO Jonathan Mitchell was facing the possibility of laying off 3,000 employees. But Carlos noticed something during his night shifts. The engineers were working later and later. Their voices getting more frustrated, their conversations more desperate. He could see the stress in their faces, the exhaustion in their movements. One night in April, Carlos found a crumpled paper in Dr. Sarah Chen's trash can. It was a diagram showing the battery's molecular structure with notes scribbled in the margins. Thermal expansion causing microfractures? Why only after 3 weeks? Missing something fundamental. Carlos had no idea what thermal expansion meant, but he recognized desperation when he saw it. That morning, he showed the paper to Maria and Sofia. "Papa, what is this about?" Maria asked. Carlos explained what he had been overhearing: the battery technology, the mysterious failure pattern, the brilliant minds who couldn't solve it. Sofia, who had always been fascinated by chemistry, stared at the diagram. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "If the problem happens after exactly 3 weeks, it's not random. There's a pattern." Maria, who loved mathematics, added, "And if there's a pattern, there's a solution." That weekend, the twins did something that would change their lives forever. They walked to the public library and spent 14 hours researching battery technology, thermal expansion, and molecular chemistry. They read scientific papers that were written for PhD students. They watched YouTube videos from MIT professors. They studied patent documents from battery manufacturers around the world, but they approached the problem differently than the experts had. The MIT engineers were trying to fix the battery technology. The twins were trying to understand why it broke. The experts were focused on the chemistry. The twins were focused on the pattern. The professionals were working with million-dollar equipment. The twins were working with paper, pencils, and public library computers. After 3 weeks of research, Sofia made a discovery that would stun the scientific community. "Maria, look at this," she said, pointing to a chemistry textbook. "The battery failure always happens after 21 days, right? But look at this molecular diagram. The chemical reaction creates a 21-day cycle before the molecules start breaking down." Maria studied the numbers. It's not the chemistry that's wrong. It's the timing. The engineers are testing the batteries under constant load, but real-world usage has rest periods. The chemical reaction needs recovery time. Sofia added, "It's like, imagine you're running a marathon. If you sprint the entire time, you'll collapse. But if you run in intervals with rest periods, you can go much further." The twins spent the next week developing their theory. They created mathematical models using techniques they learned from Khan Academy. They drew molecular diagrams with colored pencils. They wrote equations on notebook paper. Their solution was elegant and simple. Instead of trying to prevent the chemical breakdown, design the battery to automatically cycle through micro-rest periods that allow the molecules to recover. But here's the problem. They were 2 teenagers from Queens. They had no credentials, no connections, no way to get their theory to the people who needed to hear it. That's when Carlos made a decision that would either embarrass his family or change their lives forever. On a Tuesday night in May, Carlos walked into CEO Jonathan Mitchell's office at 2 a.m. The CEO was still there, working frantically on the battery crisis. "Mr. Mitchell," Carlos said quietly, "I need to speak with you." Jonathan looked up, surprised. In 12 years, Carlos had never spoken to him directly. "What is it, Carlos?" "Sir, I think my daughters may have solved your battery problem." Jonathan's first instinct was to dismiss this. A janitor's daughters solving a problem that MIT PhDs couldn't crack? It sounded ridiculous. But then he remembered something his mentor had told him years ago. The best solutions often come from people who aren't experts in the field, because they're not limited by expert assumptions. "Tell me more," Jonathan said. Carlos pulled out his daughter's notebook. 47 pages of hand-drawn diagrams, mathematical equations, and chemical formulas. He explained their theory about molecular recovery cycles and interval-based battery design. Jonathan studied the notebook for 20 minutes. As a former engineer himself, he could see the brilliance in their thinking. It was unconventional, but it was logical. "Carlos, I need to meet your daughters." The next morning, Maria and Sofia Rodriguez walked into the Tech Global Industries boardroom. They were wearing their best clothes, outfits they had bought for school presentations. They carried their research in a 3-ring binder from Walmart. Sitting across from them were 10 of the world's leading battery experts, each with multiple PhD degrees and decades of experience. For the next hour, the twins presented their theory. They explained their research methodology. They showed their mathematical models. They demonstrated their solution using drawings and diagrams that looked like high school science fair projects. The room was silent when they finished. Dr. Sarah Chun, the lead battery engineer, was the first to speak. "In 25 years of research, I've never seen anyone approach this problem from this angle. Your theory is brilliant," Dr. Michael Thompson from MIT added. "We've been so focused on preventing the chemical breakdown that we never considered working with it instead of against it." 3 weeks later, Tech Global Industries implemented the twin solution. The battery technology worked perfectly. The chemical breakdown issue was completely resolved. The company's stock price soared. The 3,000 jobs were saved. The $300 million investment was rescued. But what happened next shocked the business world. CEO Jonathan Mitchell called a press conference. He announced that Tech Global Industries was creating the Rodriguez Innovation Fund, a $50 million initiative to find and support brilliant minds in unexpected places. Maria and Sofia received full scholarships to MIT. But more importantly, they received something that money can't buy: recognition that intelligence and innovation can come from anywhere. The twin solution is now used in battery technology around the world. They hold patents worth millions of dollars. They've been invited to speak at Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford. But here's what the story is really about. It's not about two smart teenagers getting lucky. It's about the hidden genius that exists in every community, waiting to be discovered. Maria and Sofia succeeded because they had something the experts didn't: a fresh perspective, unlimited curiosity, and a father who believed in their potential. They discovered what I call the outsider advantage: the ability to see solutions that experts miss because they're not constrained by expert assumptions. While the MIT engineers were thinking like battery experts, the twins were thinking like problem solvers. While the professionals were using complex equipment, the twins were using simple logic. While the experts were trying to force the technology to work, the twins were trying to understand why it didn't work. This reveals 3 principles that separate breakthrough thinkers from conventional minds. Principle 1. Fresh eyes see clear solutions. The twins succeeded because they approached the problem without preconceptions. They weren't limited by what couldn't be done because they didn't know what was supposed to be impossible. Principle 2. Simple questions lead complex answers. Instead of asking, "How do we fix this?" the twins asked, "Why does this break?" The right question is more powerful than the smartest answer to the wrong question. Principle 3. Passion trumps credentials. The twins spent 3 weeks obsessing over a problem that wasn't even theirs to solve. Their curiosity was stronger than their lack of formal training. But here's the uncomfortable truth that most people don't want to hear. There are Maria and Sofia Rodriguez in every city, every school, every family. Brilliant minds with incredible potential who never get the chance to shine because they don't fit the traditional definition of smart. Right now in your community, there are teenagers who could solve problems that experts can't crack. There are parents who have insights that CEOs need to hear. There are ordinary people with extraordinary ideas who are waiting for someone to believe in them. The question isn't whether these people exist. The question is, are you looking for them? Because here's what Carlos Rodriguez understood that most people miss. Potential isn't about where you come from. It's about how you see problems that others can't see. Intelligence isn't about your degrees. It's about your curiosity. Innovation isn't about your resources. It's about your perspective. Carlos spent 12 years cleaning offices, but he never stopped believing that his daughters were capable of greatness. He didn't wait for the perfect opportunity. He created one. When he walked into that CEO's office at 2 a.m., he wasn't asking for charity. He was offering value. When his daughters presented their solution, they weren't making excuses about their lack of credentials. They were proving their worth with results. And when the world finally recognized their brilliance, they didn't forget where they came from. They used their success to lift others up. So here's what I want you to do right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Take out your phone and write down 3 things. One problem in your field that everyone says is impossible to solve. One person in your life whose potential you may have underestimated. One way you can use your current position to create opportunities for others. Because here's the truth that most people can't handle. The next breakthrough in your industry won't come from the people you expect. It'll come from the people you've been overlooking. The next great solution won't come from the most qualified candidate. It'll come from the person who sees the problem differently. The next big innovation won't come from the biggest budget. It'll come from the freshest perspective. Maria and Sofia Rodriguez didn't have advantages. They didn't have connections. They didn't have credentials. They had what you have right now, a choice. The choice to see problems as opportunities. The choice to ask different questions. The choice to believe that intelligence comes in many forms. What's it going to be? Because I promise you this. If 2 16-year-old daughters of a janitor can solve a $300 million problem that stumped MIT experts, then whatever challenge you're facing is not only solvable, it's waiting for someone with your unique perspective to crack it. Starting today. Starting now. Your breakthrough begins with believing that you might be the one who sees what others can't. Make it happen.